This is an interesting one, isn't it? What do you think? Is it actually, in the end, justified to steal food from a supermarket and take it to food banks to help people who otherwise would go hungry? Well, that's what's happening. Activists from the food campaign group Everybody Eats have again filmed themselves doing exactly that.
With us now from the Everybody Eats group, activist Luke, who says they have to take matters into their own hands. And on the other side of the argument, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley, who says this is lawlessness and the wrong way to tackle poverty. Very good morning to both of you.
Morning.
Luke, this is shoplifting. It's a crime. Why are you justifying it?
On Saturday, I took action with Everybody Eats in Hastings, and because of the action I took with other people, we provided enough food for a local food bank to provide over 1,000 meals for people that need it the most.
But you could have gone into a house and stolen food. You wouldn't justify that, would you?
We're not talking about going into a house, we're talking about going to corporations that make billions of pounds of profit in a cost of living crisis. OK,
so the thing you think is that supermarkets earn too much money and therefore they deserve to have their shelves pilfered.
The situation that we're in is dire. We're looking at 12 million people in this country living in poverty. 4 million of them are children.
Why don't you buy the food and then donate it to the food bank? Why steal it?
Let me ask you this. If your children were going hungry and you didn't have the money to feed them, what would you do to provide food for them?
But are your children going hungry?
I don't have children.
Right, so you're not actually... It's not the same argument, is it? You're stealing to give to a food bank.
But no, I'm asking you, what would you do if your children were going hungry in front of you and you didn't have the money to provide them food? What would you do to feed your children? Because that is the situation millions of people are facing in this country.
But you're not arguing as a parent. You're not saying I would do anything for my children because you don't have children. So it's a different argument, isn't it? Peter, what do you make of what you're hearing?
You didn't take action on Saturday. You went thieving. You went breaking the law. And the real core point to your criminality is that it is so deeply insulting to people who fall on hard times. Me and my single mother, when we lived in a flat, barely had 2 coppers to rub together. And the thought that people who fall on hard times would accept your tarnished, tainted, stolen goods is so deeply presumptuous and insulting to people who are suffering hardship.
But he didn't go thieving for himself, did he? Or his mates. He went thieving for a food bank. They gave the food to the food bank. Does that mean the food bank... Well, clearly they're in receipt of stolen goods, aren't they?
If they knowingly handle those goods, knowing that they are stolen, then yes, they are committing
So if you were a serving
offence.
copper and this case was laid before you and you interviewed him and he freely admitted what he'd done and the food bank freely admitted taking the food, would you prosecute the food bank as well?
I would put a file together for the CPS to consider whether to charge or not entirely.
Have police got involved?
I know the police haven't got involved, but let me ask you this question, mate. When's the last time you spoke to someone who works at a food bank? Because I'm speaking to people who work in food banks, and they're telling me that their shelves are getting emptier and emptier, but the queues outside are getting longer. People are getting desperate and they need help.
As part of your...
just 1 second.
As part of your publicity, you've used the word starving. You've said that people are starving and you're helping to prevent starvation. That's a very strong word. I mean, if you look up starving in the dictionary, I mean, it's very clear. It's at the risk of imminent death. It's not that bad, is it?
Yeah, people are starving,
Starving to death?
Yes, people are starving.
There haven't been any inquests on anyone who's starved to death.
Can I ask you, what is your, relationship with poverty like? What's your experience with poverty? Do you know anyone who's struggling? Do you know people who go to food banks?
Well, but Luke, you've just heard from Peter, who did experience poverty when he was growing up, who says that this isn't justified. Peter, we are in the midst of a cost of living crisis, as Luke describes. We're also in the middle of a shoplifting crisis. Police are not taking action on these cases, it seems.
Well, the police are not taking action on a huge raft of shoplifting offences, unfortunately. And new stats that came out yesterday puts shoplifting at a cost of £4.7 billion. We have an outbreak of lawlessness on the streets, which is clearly not being tackled. We have 800 people in retail being assaulted or abused every single day. And this puts another burden, potentially, on people in the retail industry through Luke and his fellow criminals, their illegal actions. What's going to happen when staff in these stores have to challenge them? What kind of resistance will they come up against?
And is there a bit of a streak of exhibitionism going on here in you guys? I mean, you wear these daft hats that, to be honest, make you look a bit stupid, these Robin Hood hats. There does seem to be an element of performance in it. You seem to be kind of quite revelling in what you're doing. Is that a fair comment?
Everybody is here to help the people who need it the most. And when you go into a supermarket, you see baby formula and Calpol tagged up. That's because those items are being stolen by desperate parents who are just trying to feed their babies and trying to make sure they not get sick. Do you think they deserve to go to prison and get locked up because they're now criminals?
Would you go to jail for this?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Luke.
We live in hope.
Peter, thanks both very much.